So let's take a look at the narrowest, widest, roundest, squarest, and weirdest shaped countries in the world. In this video, we'll go through a few countries in each of the earlier discussed topics, and we'll decide which countries fit the requirements to be the narrowest, widest, roundest, squarest, or weirdest shaped country. Starting with the narrowest country. In the world, there are a few narrow countries. Well, actually more than you'd think. Japan, Vietnam, Laos, Nepal, Chile, Malawi, Norway, Eritrea, Italy, New Zealand, Portugal, and Cuba are just a few of them. The one that probably pops up in your head first is Chile. However, although the country looks like it has a perfectly narrow country, the average width is 177 kilometers and smaller than Malawi, with an average width of approximately 170 kilometers. But hold on just a minute. Isn't the Vatican just the narrowest country? Well, you would say it is, but let's be honest, it's not exactly impressive to be one of the narrowest when your size is only 0.49 squared kilometers. And looking at their map, they're not a good-looking narrow country, it's more a round or squared shape. However, the Vatican is still not even the narrowest, if we would have counted them. One country in particular varies between widths of 100 meters to only 1.5 meters, Tuvalu. But this is yet another country we shall not include in this list, although already being much better shaped than the Vatican. Now let's go back to Chile. They are without a doubt one of the most impressive shaped countries in the world, but unfortunately not the narrowest. Other countries that do meet the requirements but don't get to see the top spots of our list are Italy, with the width of 254 kilometers, Laos 225 kilometers, Norway 217 kilometers, Vietnam, although having a narrowest point of only 48 kilometers, an average of 201 kilometers, Eritrea with 187 kilometers, Malawi with 170 kilometers, Nepal and New Zealand both with 167 kilometers, although I don't really know if that of Nepal is the length or width, and Portugal with 162 kilometers. Countries that I've selected as the narrowest are Japan, Panama, the Gambia, and Cuba. When looking at the map of Panama, the first thing the eye notices is that it looks perfectly narrow. It could possibly be the narrowest. However, this particular part of Panama is ruining that status, but we'll come to that later. So the narrowest point of Panama is right here, called the Culebra Cut, or the more known name, Panama Canal. This canal was firstly built by Frenchmen, but they failed and the Americans took over. Today it serves as an important trading route. Anyway, that was just a bit of background information. Going back to the narrowness. The canal is only 12.6 kilometers long and not even measured in a straight line. Now, unfortunately, the 12.6 kilometers, and probably less, is worth nothing with this wider part of the country of 185 kilometers. This brings the country of Panama to a third place in our top 4 with an average of 97 kilometers wide. So this leaves us with one country lower than Panama and 3 spots left on the list, with only 3 countries left: Japan, the Gambia, and Cuba. Now, as for the narrowest point, Panama would have won since Japan comes behind with a small width of 19 kilometers and Cuba with 31 kilometers. But let's put the maps side by side to compare their shape for a moment. Now, this is too close to see. However, because of the wider parts of Hokkaido in the center of Japan, they are unfortunately on 4th place and just behind Panama with an average width of 99 kilometers, meaning we've got Cuba and Gambia left. However, this is not really a question. Cuba is going away with this 2nd place with the width of only 88 kilometers, while that of Gambia just surpasses every country with an average width of only 24 to 28 kilometers. However, we do think the 2nd and 1st places are up for discussion when looking at both maps of Cuba and the Gambia. Is it really their width, or should we have counted it as their length? I leave that up to you guys. Widest. Okay, so before I thought of this as one of the interesting topics, but considering it got me thinking this one's really obvious. There's not even a single piece of doubt in this. As obvious as it is, Russia is the widest country. I mean, we really only need the world map to check this fact. Russia's width is more than 10,000 kilometers. Roundest. Now we're talking again. For this one, I already filtered some of the more round countries in the world. And although most of these topics are up for discussion, this one can actually be proven with math. On this map, we can see someone has put a circle on a country to see which borders stick the closest to the line of the circle. However, I think the roundest country also has to do something with the shape. I mean, how is the Vatican round? That's just straight up nonsense. And so I made my own list: North Macedonia, Zimbabwe, Uruguay, Iceland, Nauru, and Suriname. The first we're going to look at is Iceland. When comparing this map to a country like the Vatican, it becomes clear that Iceland does look rounder. However, concentrating more on the map makes things clear. The upper left side of the country ruins their top place. The part called Vestfjordur is a promontory, making Iceland not qualify as roundest. Now, to be honest, I could make a long story to argue the country that is the roundest, but it'll stay an opinion. So let's keep this short. Let's put all these 6 maps side by side. So as earlier said, it's not going to be Iceland. Suriname, in my opinion, is square, and Zimbabwe would have finished first if the Huang region in Mutabaland hadn't jutted out of the country's circle of optimal rotundity, leaving us with Nauru, Uruguay, and North Macedonia. Now this is a hard one. While Uruguay stretches a bit too far to the north, North Macedonia is a bit too oval, just like Nauru. Still, if going for the roundest, North Macedonia is the winner. The border lines are pretty even and smooth, while that of Uruguay is ruined by the upper part of the province Artigas, and that of simply too oval. Unfortunately for Uruguay, we'll have to put them at 3rd place, while Nauru has to be glad with the 2nd place. And so the top 6 of roundest countries are Iceland, Suriname, Zimbabwe, Uruguay, Nauru, and at the 1st place, North Macedonia. Now, going for mathematics, the countries of this map would be the most roundest. Squarest. Now, a while ago this video came out, The Mystery of the Squarest Country by Jay Foreman. He came to the conclusion that Egypt is the squarest country, and although I agree with him for the most part, there's one other country that I think should have been the squarest, which is Equatorial Guinea. If looking at the map, you're almost wondering why they've chosen Egypt instead of this country. The reason was that the island of the capital Maloba ruined their shape. Now, they included this part in their contest. However, I think you can't include this since they are actually 2 shapes, the vast territory and their island. That would be the same as saying France is the biggest European countries because of their overseas territories. So what if we would have made these instead of separate a combined 1-shaped country, which would look like this? If you'd compare this to Egypt, Equatorial is the winner. I just can't seem to ignore the perfectly straight lines of Equatorial Guinea's borders, and so that's why I choose them as the squarest country. Another country that we've mentioned earlier in this video is the Vatican, and so my top 3 squarest countries are 3 the Vatican, 2 Egypt, and 1 Equatorial Guinea. However, just like the roundest country, again someone made a scientific map of the index of how square countries are, and what they're basically doing is putting a square on top of countries. This is the map and list of their squarest countries. I personally think Vatican and Egypt make sense. However, countries like St. Martin, Lesotho, Yemen, and Ghana are more of a rectangle than a square. Weirdest. And finally, we've come to the last category, the weirdest shaped country in the world. For this part, we're choosing 1 weird shaped country for each continent, and we'll compare them to see which one is the weirdest shaped. We'll start with the continent of Europe. The country I've chosen for this continent is Croatia. With a shape almost landlocking Bosnia and Herzegovina, with the east bordering Serbia, with the long and small shape of the west bordering Montenegro, this country truly qualifies as one of the weirdest shapes in the world. Moving on to the continent of Asia. Now, most of Asia looks kinda smooth, to be honest, so we have to go down to the southeast of the continent, where we don't even have to search for the weird shapes anymore. Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. A bunch of weird but unique shapes, in my opinion. The one who seems to be normal in this is Cambodia. Now, since I really can't choose, I'm going with 2, Indonesia and Vietnam. For Africa, I'm choosing Gambia, of which the country is based on a river. Moving to the continent of South America, where the country we're choosing is again obvious, the country of Chile. And for North America, we're choosing the Bahamas. Countries in Oceania, however, are not that interesting when looking at shapes, so we'll leave them for now. Now, I don't want to waste too much time on this because it seems like this is just pure an opinion. So let's make a tier list. Afterwards, you can decide if you agree, if we missed a country, and what you'd do differently. Now, this is my personal tier list with the Bahamas and Indonesia at the 5th and 6th place. The 4th place is for Vietnam. With their long and small lower part, they're really unique. However, against Chile, the Gambia and Croatia aren't enough. Now, of these 3 countries, I myself find 2 very fascinating. That of the Gambia, which is kind of based on the river, and Croatia. Croatia has a shape that you'll see nowhere in the world. And for that reason, the 3rd place is for Chile, the 2nd place is for the Gambia, and the top place is for Croatia. This makes the tier list look like this. Do you agree? And with the weirdest shape, this video has come to an end. Do you agree with the choices I made, or should I do something different? I'm planning on making a longer video on the weirdest shapes and explaining them a bit, and in particular countries like Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. Comment down below your opinion. And if you'd like to see the weirdest shape video, while you're on your way there, do consider subscribing and liking this video. Anyway, thank you for watching, and see you in the next of Earth Basics.